It's the Wickersham Leader Show with today's episode, The Lore Keeper. Hello, everybody. After my short break last week, I've decided that I want to take things a little bit slow today. No big, difficult game. Well, at least it shouldn't be a difficult game. No big, difficult game that requires me to have lots of foresight or knowledge or anything, because I think today I want to just spend time just talking about what we are doing and where... Excuse me. Just want to spend time, like, talking about things, especially with all this DK stuff coming around. People are all their eyes on the big guy right now. So, if I'm lucky, some of my ramblings here today will reach people, and they will be, maybe, even interested in what I have to say. Because I guess I just kind of want to do a little bit of overview of DK's history. I don't know. We'll see it as it comes, because there's a lot of interesting things to talk about with this. Oh, jeez. Accidentally pressed some buttons. But yes, DK King of Swing, the first video game in the Donkey Kong series not made by either Nintendo or Rare. Instead, it was made by Payon, who more or less took over the DK series in between 2004 and 2010. They had this game, the DS game Jungle Climber, and Barrel Blast under their belt. None of which were particularly, like, loved games, but they are games that kind of just kept the series going during a time when they really didn't know what they were doing. And I'll go into a little bit more of that after we finish our story. Tomorrow is the day we finally hold that competition. Whoever gets the most medals will be the jungle hero. It's kind of a throwaway plot. Now, these medals are important, so don't let anybody steal them. I'll just keep them safe in here for safe storage. And K. Rool just shows up and takes them, because I guess he's got nothing better to do. I mean, in terms of his plans, this is really minor. I guess I'm the jungle hero now. Since you chumps don't need these medals, I'll just take them for myself. I don't even think about trying to get them back, monkey brains. See ya. It's like... Considering where K. Rool has been up to this point, it's like he's desperate for a win here. Oh no, now we can't hold our tournament. We have to get those medals back from King K. Rool. It is the most excuse plot I think I've ever seen. It's kind of funny how low we've fallen. And now they're just explaining how to move and everything. This game is controlled... It's based off of an NES game called Clu Clu Land. But instead of being a game where you're just kind of moving forward automatically, and then you just go left and right. Hello, Francisco. Instead of just being a game where you go left and right, it's a game where you actually have to go somewhere, and you're affected by gravity. Whereas Bubbles from Clu Clu Land would just kind of go forward automatically. It's a strange thing to base a game off of, especially a Donkey Kong game, but whatever. But once we start the game proper, I won't have to really say much. And this is explaining air movement, which I can use with either the D-pad or the R and L buttons. I actually have a special controller for this. Perhaps you've heard of the Hori controller that they made, which gives the GameCube a proper D-pad. For GameCube games, and this is not that, but it is instead a replica made by Old School, which works pretty much just as well. Sure, it feels cheap, but that, you know, it is what it is. Yeah, so instead of invincibility being tied to an item, it's just the number of bananas. And you can just use it at any time. So let's talk about what's happened to DK lately, because the franchise is going in interesting new directions, and not everybody's really sure about it. There's been a lot of talks about his design, the game itself, and who is and isn't included in this adventure. And I think it's worth kind of getting a little bit more of a big picture talk for it. Alright. Now we can actually start playing the game. So, let's see. We are in the beginning of a brand new console for Nintendo, and there has been a lot of buzz about it. There is a lot of people talking about the new games, the new pricing and everything, and while I do have my own opinions on the pricing of everything, I don't know if I necessarily want to get into that thing just yet. What I want to talk about today, though, is just specifically about Donkey Kong and more like how we got here and where Bonanza has taken us. Because I've been seeing a lot of people's opinions on that. And that is something that I feel like I can actually have a substantive conversation about. Because there is so much going on with DK that it feels like all of a sudden he's become a big name that Nintendo really cares about after years and years of stagnation. Like, okay, 1981, right? Nintendo releases Donkey Kong after their failed experiment with Radar Scope. And it is the biggest hit of that year. It, like, people have played tons and tons of Pac-Man. And the following year they will play lots of Ms. Pac-Man. But for 1981, there is kind of nothing like Donkey Kong on the market. It is a platformer. I'm not sure it's the first one, but if it's not the first one, it's dang near close to being the first one, right? And it blows people away. And it's so fun. The main character, Mario or Jumpman, depending on which version of the cabinet you have on hand, is not as exciting as the guy the game is named after. It's named after the villain, Donkey Kong, not the main character, Mario or Jumpman. And he instantly becomes a household name overnight. But the important thing about Donkey Kong in those days is that how do you differentiate Donkey Kong from any other ape character? By all accounts, Donkey Kong in 1981 was nothing more than just a gorilla. He had a bit of a cheeky look to him. He was mischievous, of course, but Donkey Kong himself was, by and large, nothing more than a King Kong pastiche. Perhaps unintentionally, but he was. He didn't have any, like, story going on with him or anything like that, outside of just, he is a gorilla that kidnapped Mario's girl and went to the top of the tower, and then you knock him down in 3 stages and you do it all over again. How do you design a Donkey Kong for that? And the answer is honestly that they kind of just didn't. And so what they did instead is they kind of just took a lot of the... Hold on, sorry, I gotta focus for a second. There we go. So what a lot of people did is they just, like, the name Donkey Kong was, like, the most important thing about it. The design wasn't important. The gameplay was important. And that name, Donkey Kong, was really all they had to go on. And interestingly, though, even as early as this, we started to see some kind of story peek through when Donkey Kong Jr. comes around. And it kind of sets it up as like this revenge story. The hero of the last game is the villain of this one, and Mario's like only villain role to date. Like, it's kind of insane that they would do that. You got a really... Ooh, hold on. You got a really popular protagonist, and he's just the villain now. Imagine that. So what does it mean for DK himself? Well, not a whole lot. DK was in the game, but he took the place of Lady or Pauline, whatever name you want to use. So, and that's kind of just where DK was. He was this titan in the arcade. He was known because of the name, and not a whole lot else, right? That name attached to the game was what gave Donkey Kong that push. That was the thing that made DK different. He had a name and a fun game attached to it. And, you know, and then of course, while Mario would go off to make his own series, Donkey Kong would be left in the dust. Donkey Kong, in general, was not even a character that was really supposed to exist. At least not initially. Donkey Kong, when he was created, for all intents and purposes, was a replacement for Bluto from Popeye, because it is well observed now that Miyamoto had previously wanted to make the game a Popeye game. He eventually would get his Popeye game, but that means that Mario took the place of Popeye, DK was Bluto, and Pauline was Olive Oyl. And it's really obvious to see that inspiration there. But Mario would move on to bigger and better things. He'd get out of the construction business, he'd go into plumbing, and then he would spend the rest of his days rescuing princesses and, well, doing almost anything, really. Like, it is actually kind of crazy the amount of things he would go off to do. I mean, even on the NES, he would move on from just the simple gameplay of Mario Brothers from the arcade to Super Mario Brothers, where he had a whole adventure in front of him. And DK himself would be nowhere to be seen, but DK Jr. would occasionally crop up. In 1992, Mario Kart, the first Super Mario Kart, came out, and instead of featuring Donkey Kong, the chosen heavyweight driver was Donkey Kong Jr. Why? I'm not sure, but I guess they figured that Donkey Kong Jr. being a good guy in their eyes, I mean, despite that short stint of DK himself being, you know, oh well. You know what? I'm not going to focus on the collectibles too much. I'll get what I can. So for years, DK and DK Jr. were more or less left as, oh, they were Mario's old antagonists. They were the people that gave Mario trouble back in the early 80s. But now it's the Super Nintendo. 1991, right? And DK has more or less languished. And then in 1994, we got Donkey Kong 94. More, kind of a soft remake of the events of the original Donkey Kong. Greatly expanded to include Pauline and Junior. So I guess it's more in the case of like a typical sequel you might expect, right? Expands the world, gives us more context for everything. But above all else, is a really fun game. However, despite that game releasing that year, Nintendo was also working with a British company that went by the name of Rare. And I'm sure a lot of you know exactly where this is going, but let me get to my piece. And let me just keep saying what I want to say here for just a moment. So Rare was a company based in the UK, in Twycross, England. Not Scotland or Wales, whatever. And there was early experimentation with 3D graphics at the time. 3D graphics had since taken a large popularity in the 90s due to movies like Jurassic Park, releasing in '89. At least I think it was '89. If it wasn't '89, it was '90. Movies like The Black Cauldron, which Disney had released, which was the first one of their productions to ever feature computer graphics. And where people saw, a lot of people saw the potential for 3D to really take off. And it wasn't just, you know, and, oh shoot, what have I done? Press the A button. And it wasn't just Nintendo that was seeing it, everyone was seeing it. So they had a vested interest in getting their hands on some of that 3D pie. They didn't really do much of it themselves, though. It would be a lot of, say, it would be a lot of other companies that would throw their hat in the ring first. And Rare was one that was working on these SGI projects. And I'm not exactly certain how the meeting went down for it. But Nintendo saw what Rare was doing, and they really liked what they saw. So they said, okay, well, you can have a look at one of, like, our Nintendo franchises, and we're gonna give you the opportunity to make a game with them. And if I remember correctly, the story seems to be that they chose Donkey Kong because he had nothing going on for years and years and years. And that would be the moment that DK would be changed forever, when they decided to do this whole thing. Now, there was at one point a Donkey Kong game, a story prototype that they came up with, which featured Wario as the villain, and he was gonna take over Nintendo World, or Nintendo Land, which was apparently a place that exists. So looking through there, Nintendo looked at what Rare's pitch was, and they said, how about you do something a little bit more original, less involved with other Nintendo characters? Because why, you know, just from like a story perspective, why would DK want much to do with Mario at all? The last time that Mario and DK had seen each other, they were bitter rivals. So from a story perspective, this didn't really make much sense. So instead, they came up with a concept called Donkey Kong and the Golden Bananas. And it was a story about how Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. were, you know, relaxing on their Jungle Island home when Grandpa Kong came up to them and said, hey, you know, while you were sleeping or napping or whatever, the Kremlings, who were the Kremling crew, came over and stole all of your golden bananas. And from there, it's pretty much history. The story, of course, was tweaked a bit to be about the Banana Horde. The Kremling crocodile crew that they came up with was given a proper leader, King K. Rool, and now, above all else, DK had an actual identity. The tie look that DK sported in Donkey Kong Country was actually not the first time that DK had been given it. They had previously given DK the tie in Donkey Kong 94. But with a funny little bit of story, we now know that those two characters are different people. That Donkey Kong from those games became Cranky Kong, where he goes on large tirades about how good games used to be. Keep in mind, this was 1994, so games themselves weren't very old yet. But he had grown old and crotchety, and now he complains that gamers want too much graphics, they want too much color, they want too many things. And instead of being happy with one screen with 5 colors that we had to deal with in the arcades in those days, I was whisking off maidens and throwing barrels like 6 days a week, he'd say. So what is this new DK? Well, the junior from the junior from the junior that they had for the pitch Bible of Donkey Kong and the Golden Bananas was deemed to be too radically different from our good pal Donkey Kong Jr. So Nintendo said, well, you can either use the old design or you gotta make him a new character. He can't be Junior. You gotta change him. And it's true, he did look radically different. He was sporting a hat, and instead of a singlet that said J on it, or Junior, depending on the artist, he had a tail and a cropped t-shirt with no sleeves. So that became Diddy Kong. And the whole point of this game was more or less to just show off the power of what you can do with the Silicon Graphics AGI workstations that they were making these graphics on. And now DK had a whole world to live in. He had a personality. He wasn't just a gorilla that stole maidens. He was, onto himself, a hero. Although, you know, technically it's not the same DK, but for the purposes of this, I'll just consider them the same character, because in terms of the public eye, he might as well be. Donkey Kong had a world, he had new friends, he had environments that he was going through. Whoops. He had environments that he was going through which were wholly unique to him. A whole new, he had a new home, a new island, and completely removed from Mario. There we go. Gosh, that took a while to hit. And they did that thanks to character designer Kevin Bayliss, who took Miyamoto's original concept sketches, which are well known, of DK, based on Donkey Kong 94, the Thai idea supposedly being from Miyamoto himself, which would make sense. Wow, okay. We're starting to meet some resistance. But Rare's version of DK quickly rose in popularity, and throughout the mid-90s, Donkey Kong was, once again, a household name. He wasn't just a legacy character restricted to Game & Watch Gallery titles. Donkey Kong had been reinvented. He was now a new character with a brand new world, and I accidentally hit the A button again because I am very stupid. And he was riding that gravy train for quite some time. He had a new friend, Diddy Kong, he lived on DK Island, and he was sporting a spiffy new sleek design with a muscular bod rendered in glorious 3 dimensions that was unlike anything the world had really seen before. I mean, of course, 3D graphics did exist. It's not like they had suddenly propped up overnight out of nowhere. And I cannot seem to grab properly. The first time I'm getting any sort of pushback, I am failing. And this new design that DK had was fit for the 3D generation, but ultimately was kind of derivative of Kevin Baylis's previous work. DK, he has since gone on to say that DK has what he likes to call Battletoads face. And if you've seen Baylis's work on Battletoads with any of the characters from that series, yeah, it's really obvious. He looks like a Battletoad if you just separate his face. In fact, Kevin Baylis still draws him with a much more pronounced Battletoads face than he actually has, because his design had been changed slightly over the years. So throughout all of 1994 to 1999, Rare was at the helm of the Donkey Kong franchise, and they had pretty much complete control over the design, and they didn't really change what wasn't broken, you know? He was sporting this brand new design that seemed to work really well for the world, and everyone was loving it, and he was getting a TV show, he was getting merchandise out the wazoo. Japan even seemed to take a liking to him. Super Donkey Kong, right? And then Donkey Kong 64. But come 2002, we're into the GameCube now. Rare, unfortunately, did not have the funds to keep themselves going. So, in a bid to get some money and a way to recuperate losses of how game development was becoming more and more expensive, especially considering what happened to them regarding Dinosaur Planet kind of being forced to turn into Star Fox Adventures, it would seem prudent to them that they would need someone new to kind of help them get what they wanted. How in the world am I supposed to grab that? Oh, you throw a rock at it. That's what you do. So, when Rare left to ultimately go do their own thing, DK was more or less stagnant. Ergo, you know, he was appearing, of course, in Mario spin-offs all the time, and they would reference his country outings quite often. Usually, whenever he was doing something like that, he would have a remix of Donkey Kong Country's Jungle Tracks, right? And everybody's quite familiar with those, and that's all well and good. But it kind of meant that DK was just a Mario-adjacent character, which is something that, while he never necessarily, like, left wholesale, oh, I'm dead again. I keep dying. And Nintendo at first didn't really change DK's design a ton. They just more or less left him as he was, and they're like, well, that's Donkey Kong, you know, he's in charge of the Donkey Kong Country series, he does his own thing. And Payon, these guys, took up the helm and more or less left that as it was. In fact, in this game, they're even using Rare's Donkey Kong voice clips. They no reason to really recast him. But the same year that this game came out, they found... Actually, you know what? Let me back up a little bit. In the earlier days of the GameCube, Nintendo was looking for something to do with Donkey Kong, and it seems that their solution was rhythm games. Heavily based on the Taiko no Tatsujin series, Donkey Konga received 3 separate entries. And those games, in addition to taking the art style pretty much directly from the SNES games, they didn't really change anything on that front. They also decided to, leave everything as it was, as it pertained to DK. So he was just kind of coasting along with his music spin-offs, his appearance in Mario titles, and he had a whole new group of characters, but he wasn't really doing anything. How in the world am I supposed to grab that? You know what? Maybe I won't. Oh, that's how. I forgot that's how you did it. Okay. Well, Now I know for the future, because that's not how barrels work in... Well, okay, they worked like that in DKC3. But the first time that Donkey Kong's design would change would arguably be this game, which featured a upturned nose more reminiscent of actual gorillas compared to the Donkey Kong Country series, where DK's nose was more or less flat on his face and appearing as two slits. And I cannot, for the life of me, maybe it's this controller. I just keep letting go of R and L. But this art style was only limited to this game. And as the series would progress, with DK Jungle Climber in 2007, DK, his design would more or less go back to something more akin to what he looked like in the Mario spin-offs. Donkey Kong would... even in Mario Party, Donkey Kong would be removed as a playable character and moved to a board event character. Which is all well and good, but that's a bit of a downgrade. So it's clear that Donkey Kong wasn't at the forefront of Nintendo's mind during this time. He was there, he had his games on the Super Nintendo, and the N64, and they did what they needed to, and that's all very well and good. But where's he supposed to go from here as, like, a franchise? And the answer was kind of nowhere. He didn't really do anything during this time. Just didn't really do anything during this time. So his design stagnated a little bit. I cannot believe how long that took me. I'm a little embarrassed at myself. And bananas are becoming more scarce. Gotta go out of my way to collect them if I can. So Payon was just kind of cruising along, making DK spin-offs for a couple of years. And then Donkey Kong Country Returns comes out. It's the first Donkey Kong Country game in... since 96, so that would be 15 years? 14 years? 14 years, because it was 2010. And he is redesigned... Oh my gosh, no, I was talking about his redesign from something else first. See, that's what happens when you play a game like this. You lose track and you repeat yourself and say nonsense. The first time that DK really got a big redesign was in this game, but also Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, which was a game that was using the bongos I mentioned from the Donkey Konga series a minute ago. And it's maybe not obvious for everyone, but he became very, very large, a lot furrier. The spin-off titles that he was in for the Mario series would often just not bother really making him appear furry at all. And, kind of just look like he's covered in a carpet, actually. I can only attack zingers from the front. I'm surprised I can attack zingers at all. And DK Jungle Beat was a very interesting title for a couple of reasons. One, Donkey Kong is the only playable character and the only returning character from his own franchise. No one else is there. Just Donkey Kong, a bunch of helper monkeys, which are new characters, and a bunch of these other Kongs who all are villain bosses types, and the game has more or less nothing to do with any other Donkey Kong game in the series. Which itself is quite unusual. But even more than that, it's not a traditional platformer. You play it with bongos. It's a score attack game. And the goal is to unlock medals and, crests, so that you can eventually beat the game. And while, and while that's all nice and everything, it's clear that Nintendo seemingly wanted to just kind of do what they do with Mario games with it. They had other characters they could use, of course, but while Donkey Kong had become a franchise that kind of cared about its story, Nintendo really didn't. That's just not how they operate with these sorts of things. And it was made by the Mario team. And that much is very clear. It plays like a Mario game. And DK's design in that game took a little bit of a turn towards making him a bit furrier, a bit muscular, but more expressive. And that's something that you see a lot of the time when it comes to Donkey Kong when he's not in Rare's hands. He becomes like this whole other character. He becomes more of a goof. In the Rare games, Donkey Kong did speak full sentences and things like the manuals, but by DK64, they had DK speaking in the third person and getting easily confused, which is a bit of a strange thing to move towards after you've made him this cool guy to make him appear a little dumb. I don't get it, but hey, that's just me. Of course, the first comment I get, and it's from a bot. Let me drink some water. I am running my mouth. Gotta press these buttons very deliberately, I'm realizing. There we are. Rare's version of Donkey Kong, in terms of his expressiveness, had almost none. The most he was going to do is look either angry or kind of happy. But that furrowed brow really did just like, okay, I mean business, you know, I'm taking things very seriously. Whenever I show up, that's when you know to pay attention. And that's kind of how he was treated in his own games. He was cool, perhaps, but his expressions didn't really let him do more than just kind of be a little ticked off, ready for action, maybe. There we go. Really making good use of the GBA's ability to resize sprites, huh? In fact, in every game that Rare made with Donkey Kong in it, I don't know if anybody has noticed this, but he doesn't have teeth. And in every game that uses a Donkey Kong model made by Rare, which are, which is, I believe Mario Kart 64 uses it, and then also, Camelot's Mario Tennis and Mario Golf made use of some things from Rare. There we go. Gotta stay right on top of things. And that brow was just kind of killed his ability. Now, they could have gone over and made the brow less prominent or more, say, I don't know. Maybe a little bit more bendy, but they didn't. Rare just kept DK kind of as he was. So when Nintendo stepped up to the plate, one of their big things they seemed to really want to push for DK was to make him more expressive. And they did. Donkey Kong Jungle Beat is kind of impressive in how it manages to make DK feel a lot more alive, with the game having a smaller look on DK's face, having a closer up look of DK's face, with the fact that he just kind of appears in a small form right on the bottom left of the screen. It makes sense that they'd want DK to, like, have expressive movements. I mean, the GameCube was also had already proven itself to be great with the expressiveness it gave Link in The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. And that's the direction that Nintendo consistently pushes DK for. Expressiveness. To give him more of a personality. And I can just tell that they were really struggling to do that with some of the old models. In Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, the second game made by Retro, DK has a couple of expressions that just look really awkward because they're sticking to this rigidness of his brow and they don't want it to change. Which you'd think would be something that they... Which you'd think would be something that they... I don't know, would have worked around. But in Mario Kart 8, Donkey Kong, well, in the game, Donkey Kong pretty notably has a terrible lack of expressions. That one's got the opposite problem, where DK's got one expression, and it, like, never changes. And his mouth just opens, and it looks bad, because they have his teeth exposed, and he's never not showing his teeth, which is something that people often, like, make fun of him for, is like, oh, the retractable teeth. But the retractable teeth is important because it makes him more expressive. So that's why we can see, though, in a lot of his artwork, you start to see some small changes, especially in 2D. Donkey Kong's nose remains upturned in all 2D artwork of the guy. in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, that's the first time that the Smash series actually took notice of this trend and kept it in for that game, which looks, honestly, that model looks really good for him. Ugh, dead again. Oh, dead. In fact, if you see in the line stickers for Mario Kart 8, you can see the 2D artwork they used for there. Notably, the gif of Donkey Kong crashing. His car, like, blows up, and then he looks at his, wheel. You can see that DK already has a design that is much more reminiscent of where he is now than where he's been. His mouth in those is noticeably wider and lower set, and his eyes are designed farther apart. And it's like, you know, they've been working on this design of his that they have for Bonanza for a long time. I barely tapped the A button. Oh my goodness, these buttons are sensitive. I'm so used to how hard I gotta press the button on the GameCube controller that I guess I didn't realize. Oh, and I'm already back down here. I suppose it's funny, because A, I barely got a tap to hit anything, but R and L, I gotta, like, hold down firm. Otherwise, it doesn't think I'm pressing them at all. Oh my gosh. Anyways, the Mario movie comes out and Donkey Kong has a drastically different design from what we're used to. But people are largely receptive to it because it's a movie. People generally expect movies to look different, which is, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. That we expect the movie to change how our characters look from their own. I mean, Mario looked different in that movie too. And that largely wasn't an issue. So. Ugh, almost. There we go. Oh my gosh, this level sucks. I just used up all of my bananas for that. So come round time for the new Switch, right? And all of a sudden, DK's looking a little different. We're getting some 2D artwork that features a notably different design for the guy, with a with a line going through his mouth, kind of like how the original Donkey Kong was designed in like 1994 for Donkey Kong 94 on the Game Boy. I'm sure I could have made my point throughout this thing much more eloquent and talk about the history a little better, but I'm still not done. Got quite a bit more to still say. So now, you know, we've got the new design that's coming with Donkey Kong Bonanza and Mario Kart World. It's the first time that DK's seen a pretty drastic change to his look since 1994. And what people are kind of calling Rare Kong versus Bonanza Kong sometimes. Oh, I hated that beeping. And the point, as was the same time before, because we see the trend with everything else they've been doing with DK since Rare left, they've been making him more and more, have more and more personality. The goal is to make DK seem a lot more jovial, a lot more fun, express a wider range of emotions. To not simply be a cool-looking mascot, but rather a character. Which is interesting. So, I guess the point I'm really getting at here is that this design is something that's kind of been quietly building up for a while. Now, I know some people swear that they hate Rare's influence on Donkey Kong, but I really don't think that's the case. They brought back David Wise to compose for Tropical Freeze. It's not like, you know, it's not like they're ignorant to where the series has been and its roots. It's just that ultimately, they want to envision DK as more of a charismatic and funny character rather than a super serious or super cool one. Oh, I am letting go of the... Close. There we go. So now the design has come to a head, and it seems, honestly, it feels like it just kind of happened overnight. I mean, heck, they're introducing this the same year that the Donkey Kong part of Super Nintendo World opens in Florida. And he is sporting his design that he's had since around 2018. In fact, when they re-released Tropical Freeze on Switch in 2018, DK's in-game model was designed to give him the raised nose. Notably, Returns HD does not include it. Probably because that was more of a port job than a full-on like changes being made to it. No funky mode or anything, you know. kind of like water levels now. In this, anyway. Hey, I got it first try. Nice. Well, so now that we have this design that's been made for Bonanza, do I like it? And I think that my answer is yes. I do like what it's doing. I know there's a lot of people around me and in circles I'm in online that hate it, but I actually like it. I actually really think that this design has some good sauce to it. It's got... he's very jovial. He looks very fun. He looks like kind of a lovable goof, you know? And I think people are largely being a bit overreactive to it. I'm not saying they can't dislike it. They absolutely can. But, oh my goodness, I've seen people in a few places very vehemently say things that just kind of don't make sense, or things like, you know, Nintendo hates Rare, Nintendo wants all aspects of Rare to be gone away, which not only doesn't make sense because they're still ultimately using a variant of their design, they still are using other aspects of the Donkey Kong Country franchise. Cranky Kong is the first character we know of that's in Bonanza, and I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that other Kongs are probably going to make the appearance too. We're probably going to see Diddy and Dixie somewhere as NPCs. This game is still tied in with the rest of the franchise. We've seen lots of details from Bonanza, such as there's a fossil that looks like the enemy Naughty from the first Donkey Kong Country. The map that shows where fossils are is a recreation of the world map from Donkey Kong Country 3. Of all things, that game gets the attention the least. So it's just impressive that they mentioned it at all, because it doesn't even have a song in Super Smash Brothers. Donkey Kong Country 3, no music. Actually, if you want to talk about a series that might actually hate them, it might just be Smash Brothers. For the first two entries, right? We only have one character. That's fine, but the only songs we had were the DK Rap and DK Island Swing. One song from the then newest game, and the basically main theme song of the franchise. Super Smash Bros. Brawl rolls around. We get a second character. We get a stage based on the newest game. But no music. The only song that got a remix that wasn't Jungle Hijinks is Sticker Bush Symphony. Well, no, I take it back. We also got King K. Rool's theme as a remix in that game. But it's like no one no one seems to touch this series. Smash 4 comes by. Oh, good heavens, Smash 4. Smash 4's DK representation is very strange. We got a Returns level, which is great. We love Returns. But also, at the same time, we got like 2 new remixes of DK Island Swing? Why? Why are we, like, doing that now? Why, like, come on, we've got other songs in this franchise. You could remix Bonus Room Blitz, or Bad Boss Boogie, Fear Factory, Cannons Clanking, which is the name of what fans had been calling Mining Melancholy. But no, you just want to do more remixes of DK Island Swing, which is a nice song by all accounts, but there's more beautiful music in the series than just that. But hey, I guess at least they included a song from Donkey Kong Barrel Blast. I will say, though, Donkey Kong Barrel Blast soundtrack is actually pretty nice, even if it's very unusual, the game itself. But Payon, well, you know, and while Payon more or less kept everything by the numbers. Sure, this isn't a country game, but K. Rool just shows up and takes over this... K. Rool just shows up and takes over this, tournament? That's, you know, considering what he did in the past, that seems like really low stakes for the guy. But while, you know, Payon kept everything more or less the same as it had always been, Nintendo is always interested in trying something new. That is very well observed in many franchises. For example, in F-Zero has not gotten a game in a very long time because they can't seem to figure out what to do with him. Well, him. Captain Falcon is not F-Zero, but... Oh, there is a thing below me. Well, that's good to know. Man, that, the tornado level really took out all of my bananas. So, like, after, so, and then in a question, you know, it makes me ask, what's new for DK after Bonanza? Where do we go from here? He's got a new look. He's got like a brand spanking new gameplay mechanic that's really cool and fits his character. I really hope this isn't the end. And it definitely won't be. Nintendo actually really seems to care about Donkey Kong right now. And they're very interested in seeing what they're gonna do with the series moving forward. I don't think I'm getting this one. Or maybe I am. Ah, no, I'm not getting it. Whoa, I'm getting deja vu. I don't know how. But I guess it's funny to think, though, that, we may be getting the game we all hoped for with this one. The Donkey Kong fanbase has been very much noting a severe lack of crocodiles in our Kong adventures. We miss them. The Kremlings need to come back. And this may just be the one. Hard to say for sure, but there seems to be a lot of weird goings-on that may point to a certain Crocodile King making his grand return. Certainly, his appearance in Smash and the fan outcry for King K. Rool to be there must be influencing this somewhat. I mean, the main enemies of the games are crocodiles. They're like bony crocodiles. And Cranky makes mention of some banana thief. And for some reason, he isn't saying who. Oof, a good hit on that. Nice. But I'm also very excited for... I'm also very much excited for Donkey Kong Bonanza myself, as you may have been able to pick up by the way I've been talking about it. The game looks fantastic, and I hope that it shouldn't be a problem for me to stream it when the time comes. I don't have a pre-order yet for the Switch 2. We'll see. We'll see. But I am definitely going to be trying to get my hands on that. So these ghosts are only corporeal. There we go. Jeez. You know what? Just... yeah. Okay, so I could have attacked them. Didn't like that. And of course, you know, it's kind of funny, but the Donkey Kong fan base feels like it just goes in circles a lot, you know? A lot of the times, we tend to have the same conversations over and over, it would seem. How many different conversations can the fan base discuss over the lore of Donkey Kong Jr., who has been a... as long as I can remember, he has been a big point of contention for Donkey Kong fans. How many worlds are there in this game? Let me actually check. Wow, there's only 2 worlds to go once I finish this. Yeah, there's only 2 worlds to go. Shoot, might as well just finish the game. forgot how short this one is. Well, I guess it's good for those car trips or whatever. Oh, I used to be so much better about being able to play video games in car trips, but as I've gotten older, I can't do it anymore. Gotta wait for them to... There we go. Okay, so if I'm holding on to two of these... There we go. Oh, jeez Louise, these ghosts are no joke. There we go. But oh man. You know, I have very good memories of my family taking me on ski trips. And when I was a kid, I had a Game Boy Advance. That was the system. And I was very much super excited by Kirby at the time. Anybody who knows me nowadays will tell you that DK is my #1, and he probably always will be. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. There we go. Okay. There we go. Alright, well, let's try this again. There we go. Nope, wrong hand. Nope, he broke out. Ugh. I remember how much this boss is a problem. I guess it's a good thing I stopped trying to talk about all that other stuff I really wanted to use the stream for. Because, oh my goodness. I've gotta lock the heck in. I can't believe I almost got it. Well, I can't get it there. Nope. I cannot get this one. Let me just take the hit. I'll get all my bananas back and then I can try again. You know what? I could probably, you know what? Instead of doing that, maybe I'll come back to this tomorrow with a little bit more of a fresh head, right? Maybe more ready to kind of talk part 2 about all this stuff. Maybe I'll look up something to discuss. Of course. I cannot for the life of me grab this thing. I can't grab it! And because I can't touch him, like... Oh my goodness. I'm always right on his tail, but I never have it. Well, I guess that's the problem, right? I'm not on his tail. I cannot grab it! Holy cow. There we go. Okay, so we've got about a third left. I guess it's time dependent. We've almost got it now. Eee. Maybe I'll just... Yeah, you know what? I've said my piece. Ugh. Sure. Yeah, I didn't really want to do more than just talk about that. Ugh. I'm sure I'll have more to say tomorrow. Game's almost done anyways. So we'll just be back.